Hey guys, in this review I'm going to be reviewing the final compendium in the Walking Dead series by Robert Kirkman. So you guys, you are perfectly and totally aware of what's about to go down in this video review. Like I mentioned, this is the fourth and final compendium of Robert Kirkman's Walking Dead series. And yeah, I felt like the best way to review all of this is to just really kind of gush about all of my feels and my feelings and my thoughts, maybe some of my frustrations. And yeah, I'm definitely going to be heading into spoiler territory. I think it's just very difficult to even talk about this without going into spoilers. So yeah, if you are not caught up with Robert Kirkman's The Walking Dead series, you might want to bypass this video for the time being. And yeah, this collects issues 145 through 193, if that's in any way helpful. So yeah, I'm heading right on into spoilers, you guys. And yeah, for the sake of this video, this is a big gigantic book. I can't hold it this entire time, so it's gonna go down. So, you guys, how did I feel about this fourth and final compendium of The Walking Dead? I just felt a lot of things, you guys. I felt a lot of things. I felt everything, it felt like. Sometimes, as I concluded the final pages, it was like this mixture of relief, you know, this mixture of relief that, oh my god, I've finally made it through this entire series. Because like I said, 193? Yeah, there's 193 issues of this series, and that's a lot. And yeah, each of these compendiums, because I've been solely collecting all of the compendiums, each of these compendiums is well over 1,000 pages. So yeah, that's a lot of time that you're spending in this world and with these characters and with all these emotional issues and emotional baggage and whatnot. That's a lot of time spent. So yeah, it's like, at the end of the day, I felt a sense of relief and accomplishment, like, wow, I made it through this entire series. It was so freaking good, I loved it. And yeah, also this mix of, you know, sadness, because I was so sad that it was over, because the way this whole series ends, it does have a rather almost abrupt ending, but a very organic, natural ending. But still, it left me being like, oh no, I don't want it to end. I feel like there's still so much to tell. And yeah, I also ended this compendium also feeling a bit frustrated in some regards, because, as I mentioned, it did end in a rather abrupt manner, and it's like there were still some other characters that I was sitting there thinking, wait, I want to go back to some of these other characters, you know, even if they weren't entirely important or integral to the story. It's like I still wanted to kind of go back to some of those characters. So yeah, I just felt a wide range of emotions as I concluded this compendium. And yeah, I gotta say, this entire series, you know, all 193 issues, I thoroughly enjoyed every bit of it. And sometimes you can't say that. You know, when you're reading a series of books, there's going to be books in a series, you know, there's going to be ones that you really love and ones that you perhaps don't like as much, you know? And a lot of times books kind of fall into, like, the middle book syndrome, that the middle book is sometimes not the best book, but, like, the first and last book may be the best. But yeah, for me personally, a lot of people might not agree with this, it just depends, but for me personally, I loved all 4 compendiums, I loved all 193 issues. I just always felt like there was something interesting going on. I was never bored at all, which is very important. And I just really came to love this world that Robert Kirkman had established. And yeah, the characters can be rather hit or miss. They can be very frustrating, they can be very annoying. But I think at the end of the day, I think you ultimately like the characters to some degree, some more than others, and some you love to hate. And I think that's what makes this series so good, is these characters that I think are rather believable and relatable, even ones that you perhaps find irritating and annoying. So yeah, let's get going with some more spoilery topics of discussion here, I suppose. And you guys, be warned. There's a lot to talk about, okay? There is a massive amount of things to talk about with this compendium. I'm not going to be able to cover every little detail, or else I would be here for a couple of hours. I could literally talk about this compendium for a couple hours because there's so much that happens. But yeah, I'm not going to be able to cover every little thing. And yeah, my thoughts are probably going to be a little bit disorganized. I'm not going to have any sort of like chronological order to anything, I guess. I'm just kind of really going to just talk about whatever I feel like talking about first. So I guess let's talk about kind of the big overall, the overarching thing of this entire series. This entire series of The Walking Dead, the core characters that you are following are Rick and Carl. They are the core and the center of this entire series. Yeah, you on page 1, you were introduced to Rick, and then yeah, not too long after that, you're introduced to his family, which includes Carl, his son. And yeah, other than Rick and Carl, no one else kind of from that beginning is alive, other than Sophia, I guess. I think, which is weird, it's so weird because Sophia, she makes it from start to finish in this series, but yeah, she only makes it to what, season 2 of the TV series, which I find so fascinating, you guys. But yeah, Rick and Carl make it from beginning to end. And then, yeah, if you want to just go ahead and throw Sophia in there, because she is introduced very, very early, in those first issues. And then, yeah, who are the next longest running people that survive by the end? I guess Michonne. Michonne and Maggie and Eugene and Aaron and Jesus and Negan. Those are kind of some of the earliest characters I guess you're introduced to. But yeah, the focus of this entire series has always been about Carl and Rick and their relationships, their relationship with one another. Their relationship has always been so fascinating because, yeah, Carl, this whole series is kind of his coming of age story to some degree. And yeah, his relationship with his father, and then Carl trying to figure out himself over the course of this entire zombie apocalypse. Because yeah, Carl goes through a lot. He starts off as a little kid, and yeah, essentially by the end he turns into a badass teenager. And yeah, Rick and Carl, their relationship, they do have their moments where everything is good, they agree on some things, but a lot of times their relationship is fraught with a lot of tension and arguing, and sometimes they just don't agree on certain things. But still, for the most part, Rick and Carl are usually on the same page with how things should be done. And yeah, Rick has always viewed this world in a certain way. We are in this apocalypse now, and this is our chance to change things for the better. Why go back to the way things used to be? We need to recreate civilization and essentially make civilization better. And the best way to accomplish this is essentially through community and through communication. That is Rick's goal from start to finish in this entire series, I feel like. Everything he does is all about communication and community, because that's how he kind of boils things down, that the best way to return to civilization is through those means. And yeah, if you have enemies, try to figure out something with your enemies, rather than killing them, try to communicate and try to make negotiations that benefit everybody and try to change things for the better, rather than through just nonsensical killing, I suppose. Make friends of your enemies, and yeah, eventually your enemies become your friends. So that's been Rick's kind of state of mind. Whether you agree or disagree with that, it just kind of depends. And yeah, Carl sees Rick live up to that day by day by day, and he sees the sacrifices that Rick makes day by day by day. And so, yeah, this compendium ends, like I said, very abruptly, very shocking, but at the same time, very realistic, very natural, very organic. And yeah, we see the assassination of Rick Grimes, you guys. Almost, it made me think of like Abraham Lincoln. You know, you have Abraham Lincoln who, he was president during the Civil War. He abolishes slavery. He's trying to get the North and the South to all get along. And it's like Rick Grimes is almost the equivalent of Abraham Lincoln, strangely enough, you know, trying to unite all these various different factions. But yeah, you can't please everybody, because yeah, what happens to Abraham Lincoln? Abraham Lincoln, he gets assassinated. And that is pretty much what happens to Rick Grimes, is that he has this moment that everything has pretty much gone well. Everybody has finally come to some sort of agreement, and everyone, you know, everyone has kind of chosen their sides. But yeah, this stupid, foolish boy, he doesn't like the way Rick is handling things, and he thinks Rick is trying to take ultimate control and ultimate power. And yeah, this stupid boy essentially assassinates Rick. He just barges into Rick's room. Rick is in there going to bed, and Rick gets shot right there in his bed, and he dies. You know, there's no one there with him. He's alone. He doesn't get any last words or last goodbyes. And yeah, the next thing that happens, here comes Carl, going to wake up his dad, and there's Rick already turned into a zombie, and Carl just has to put his dad down, you know. And it is, I feel like the ending, as abrupt as it is, it felt very natural and organic to me, because how else would Rick Grimes die? You know, what other way would he possibly die that would be satisfying? Because it would have been so stupid if he had got bit by a zombie, you know? I don't think any of us would have wanted him to get bit by a zombie and died in that way. And yeah, I didn't want him to die by like a stupid accident or something like that. The assassination attempt felt tragically poignant, you know. It felt very believable and realistic that someone like Rick Grimes would have, that's how he would die. You know, he would die from someone who was very disgruntled and very angry, and it felt very natural to me, as sad and terrible as it was. And yeah, with Rick's death, like I said, you know, we end the series with Carl, and we see him in the future, maybe some 15 years later. We have a massive time jump at the end that goes maybe about 15, 18 years, it's hard to tell. And yeah, we end this entire series on Carl, who's a grown man. He has a daughter, and thank God, you guys, he married Sophia. Carl spent like a whole compendium with Lydia, and I couldn't stand Lydia, because I always wanted Carl and Sophia together. So thank God Robert Kirkman got Carl and Sophia together. Thank God. And yeah, that's how the series ends. Carl has a daughter, and he's married to Sophia. And yeah, the way Carl lives his life, he lives his life living up to all of the messages that Rick went by. You know, he tries to set an example for his family by living as Rick did, setting up those messages, and you know, how the world should function and continue. And yeah, the whole series does kind of end in this really sad way, but I think very beautiful, you know, because yeah, the whole series was about that relationship between Carl and Rick. And yeah, the very last page, you guys, the very last page is simply Carl sitting in a chair with his daughter, telling her the story of Rick, you know, who has Rick's story has kind of turned into like a legend, almost. It is a story now. And yeah, just a very beautiful ending. You guys, I loved it. I did tear up. I wasn't sure if I would cry, because I was sitting there wondering, am I gonna cry at the end of this? And I did cry a little bit, not gonna lie. I just kind of, I concluded it and it kind of all hit me. It hit me at once and I was like, oh my goodness, I wasn't expecting that. So enough of that. I guess something I do want to touch on very quickly. We definitely got to talk about all of the big, massive character deaths that happened. You can't have The Walking Dead without a lot of big, shocking character deaths. So yeah, I'm gonna go through some of these very quickly. I don't want to spend too terribly long on them. But yeah, you know, Compendium 3 ended, and we got the big shocking cliffhanger with the whispers that they killed a bunch of people, put their heads on spikes, and yeah, some major characters were killed, like Ezekiel and Rosita. So yeah, Compendium 4 opens with the aftermath of what the Whisperers have done with putting the heads on the spikes. And yeah, we do spend quite a little bit of time with people mourning those who were lost, and yeah, people being very angry with Rick, and yeah, people wanting to take immediate action, but Rick realizing, hold up guys, we've done this before, that we head into action, but that kind of gets us into trouble and it backfires. We need to rationally think about how we're going to proceed here. We can't underestimate our enemy, because look what they just did. So yeah, Compendium 4, like I said, you get right into that with the aftermath of the heads on the spikes and everybody dealing with that and coming to terms and trying to cope, and yeah, kind of that realization of like, where do we go from here? We've never faced anything like this. And speaking of the Whispers, let's talk about the two big shocking deaths in regards to the Whispers. I mean, I had a feeling Alpha would die at some point, you know? It felt obvious she would die at some point, but yeah, it was always a thing of, how are they going to kill Alpha? This woman seems unstoppable. And yeah, it's very shocking how Alpha dies, you guys. Yeah, because Negan, he manages to get out of his jail cell by a little bit of manipulating, I suppose. And so Negan, what Negan does, which was so brilliant, he heads to the Whispers. And yeah, through a series of events there with the Whispers, at some point, as you end an issue, Negan has decapitated Alpha. Yeah, guys, there's a great image in this compendium. It's like a full page, and you see Negan holding up Alpha's head. That was so great, you know, just out of nowhere, because Negan is one of those characters. Where's his allegiances? You know, where does he truly lie? At the end of the day, Negan always looks out for himself. You know, that's kind of his thing, is he's always looking out for himself, always looking out for his best interests. And yeah, his best interest was definitely to decapitate Alpha. And yeah, that was so shocking, you guys. I really love that. And then the other big shock was Beta. Beta was introduced in this compendium. And yeah, once again, how is Beta gonna die? You know he has to die at some point. And the thing is, the Whisperer storyline in general, it kind of fizzles out. I'm not sure if Robert Kirkman just didn't really know where to go with the Whisperer storyline, you know, because it is such a crazy thing, you know, these people who dress themselves like walkers, you know, it's a very just fascinating, weird thing that happens kind of just randomly in this series. And so it's like, where is this going to go? And it kind of felt like Robert Kirkman kind of didn't know what else to do, or he lost interest, perhaps, because yeah, after the Whisperers is the big Commonwealth storyline, and I feel like Robert Kirkman, I think that's where his genuine interest lied, you know, more so than with the Whispers. I think he was trying to wrap up the Whispers probably quicker maybe than intended, perhaps, to get to the Commonwealth, I don't know. But yeah, the Whisper storyline just ends in a fizzle, you know, kind of a whimper, and because you're expecting it to really go someplace. But yeah, after the death of Alpha, I mean, that's kind of it. Beta does get his revenge by setting fire to Hilltop, but that's the last time you see Beta until like several issues later. He all of a sudden just appears because Jesus and Aaron they're traveling and they come across Beta in the middle of the night. And this was one of my favorite parts, you guys, because I am a Jesus fangirl. I love Jesus. He is easily my #1 favorite character in this series, which makes me very angry and very bitter about the TV series, because the TV series recently killed Jesus like a season ago or so at the time of this review. And I loved Jesus on the show, and I was devastated when they killed him. Because then I was very worried. It's like, oh no, is he going to die in the comics? I can't bear that. Fortunately, Jesus makes it to the very end, you guys, along with Aaron. Jesus and Aaron, I ship. I have gotten myself distracted talking about Jesus and my ship with him and Aaron. I have got distracted, seriously. I love them so much. But yeah, back to Beta. Jesus, with some assistance from Aaron, because I think it's really more Jesus that kills Beta, ain't it? Yeah, Jesus kills Beta. It was awesome. It was badass. And yeah, they realize, is it Aaron? I think it's Aaron. I can't remember. I want to say it's Aaron. Aaron recognizes Beta because they do take off the mask, and they realize that he's like a famous basketball player. And that was so awesome. And I wasn't expecting that at all. That was a great twist. And a very comedic moment, you guys. The Beta reveal and just that whole situation with Jesus and Aaron, just the whole scene from start to finish, is actually very hilarious, even though it's fraught with a lot of tension and, dread. At the end of the day, it's also very hilarious. Let's talk about Sherry and Dwight, you guys. I'll kind of add the two of them together. Dwight's been part of the series since Negan was introduced, and Sherry was his wife. It's just funny because on the TV series, Sherry was quite a big character, but yeah, in the comics, she's barely even in there. But yeah, the little bit that Sherry is in the comics, oh boy, was that bitch annoying. I hated her, and I was so glad when Rick killed her, you guys. I'm not gonna lie. When Rick killed her, I was like, oh, thank God. And then yeah, Dwight is like upset about the whole thing, even though she's not been with him for a while. He was so upset about it. It's kind of annoying there with him, being angry with Rick. But yeah, Dwight. I don't know how to feel about Dwight, because I really love Dwight in this final compendium, because Dwight was struggling with leadership at the sanctuary. He just didn't really feel like he fit in there. He didn't want to lead those people. He just didn't have confidence in himself. So I really liked Dwight's arc, his lack of confidence, and Rick trying to say, hey, you can do this, I believe in you. And then yeah, as the war with the Whispers continues, Dwight has just natural skill and talent when it comes to, like military training almost. He's able to organize an army, get people prepared for this fight with the Whispers. He takes leadership very well there, rather than leadership with a community. He takes leadership very well with, organizing an army, essentially. And I loved his story. But yeah, where you start to have conflict with Dwight is, yeah, he starts having conflict with Rick, who you tend to side with the majority of the time. And yeah, poor Dwight, it's just him just a lot of misunderstanding on his part, a lot on his part of him just, getting way over his head and not fully understanding the situation, and yeah, him being very impulsive, and yeah, Dwight dies very just tragically and unexpectedly as well, because he's about to kill Governor Milton. He's threatening to kill Governor Milton, and yeah, Rick just off to the side. You don't even see Rick until after the fact, but yeah, just all of a sudden Dwight's brains go flying out across the page, and then the next frame you see Rick over there holding up a gun, and he just point blank killed Dwight out of nowhere. Yeah, poor Dwight. I did feel so bad for Dwight, because I just don't know if it was necessarily to kill him in that manner, rather than try to do something else. So yeah, I definitely have some issues with Dwight, you know, some love and hate there. But yeah, at the end of the day, I really loved his character and the arc that he had and the overall function that he served and where it ultimately went, I guess. And then last but not least, let's talk about Andrea. You guys, oh my god. I really thought Andrea would make it to the very end of this entire series, you guys. I felt kind of confident that she would make it to the end because, yeah, besides Rick, Carl, and Sophia, Andrea has been with us from the very, very, very beginning, and yeah, she's built up a really great relationship with Rick that has lasted, and they genuinely love each other, and yes, she just gets bit, you guys. That's how Andrea goes out. She gets bit accidentally in the neck, and Robert Kirkman gave Andrea a really great, powerful ending because unlike Rick, Andrea got to be comfortable in bed, and she got to say goodbye to everybody, her friends and loved ones, and she got to, impart words of wisdom to Carl and Rick especially, to give them encouragement to keep going, not to feel sad about what has just happened to her. Yeah, Andrea definitely had one of the best deaths, I think, that just really felt like emotional and gripping and really touched at you. So yeah, Andrea, hers was definitely one of the hardest to get through since she has been there from the beginning. Yeah, her death was prolonged, It was a very prolonged death for her. And yeah, I was like, no, Rick has lost the love of his life, why? And yeah, Carl was even calling her mom, which was beautiful. And just some stray random observations, especially if you have read the entire series. I personally loved that Maggie and Dante got together. As much as I loved Maggie and Glenn, the thing is, I didn't want Maggie to remain alone. She's such a great character and such a badass, and I didn't want Maggie to remain alone and unloved, so finally she got with Dante, which was great. I love that. Like I mentioned already, I'm so glad Jesus and Aaron finally got together. I'm so glad when we got to the future that Carl got rid of Lydia and he's with Sophia. Thank you, Robert Kirkman. I also loved more page time with Eugene, considering that Eugene, I think, was introduced back in, was it Compendium 2? I think it was Compendium 2 that Eugene was introduced, wasn't he? Eugene's been a character for quite a long time, and I'm really glad Robert Kirkman finally gave Eugene a lot of page time, and yeah, it really proved just how valuable and important Eugene was. I also love just kind of the randomness that Michonne's daughter was alive at the Commonwealth. That was really interesting. And what was up with the Negan storyline, you guys? Was anybody else just really frustrated with the Negan storyline? I love Negan. He is just one of the best villains in the entire series, and I love to hate him, and I really just like digging into his psychology, why he acts the way that he does. And it's like Negan, you spend a lot of time with him in jail in this compendium, then he gets out, he has that fantastic moment that he kills Alpha, and then he's part of like Dwight's army, he's there supporting Rick at vital times, strangely enough. I love the Rick and Negan bromance because they are kind of on two separate ends of the spectrum, but at the same time they each know where the other is coming from. They each really understand each other when other people don't understand them. They both come from these very powerful positions of leadership that no one else can understand but the two of them. And then, yeah, after everything with the Whispers, Negan's kind of around for just a little bit longer, and then, yeah, he gets banished from Alexandria, he's not in jail anymore, and yeah, he goes and lives, like, in some community by himself, outside of all the other communities, and yeah, he buries his bat Lucille. You guys, that was hilarious when he broke Lucille, and it's very dramatic when it happens. And yeah, that's the last you see of Negan, and Maggie goes to see Negan at one point, and I think she's going there with the intention of killing him, but then, yeah, once she sees kind of how pathetic Negan is, because, yeah, Negan starts begging, hey, please kill me, I don't want to live this way any longer. I'm sorry for what I did to Glenn. Yeah, Negan does kind of turn into a bit of a pathetic man by the end, which is kind of weird. And that's kind of the last you see of Negan, unfortunately. I was really expecting Negan to pop back up during the Commonwealth story, because I was almost expecting him to team back up with Rick and maybe at some point sacrifice himself for Rick. Like if something really crazy happened and someone was trying to kill Rick, I was expecting Negan to maybe jump in the way and protect Rick, and that would be how Negan would die. Because yeah, I wasn't expecting Negan to make it, you guys. I was really expecting Negan to die at some point through sacrifice. But no, that didn't happen. And then yeah, even in Carl's, you know, flash forward or whatever, we see that Carl is trying to talk with Negan. You know, he goes to Negan's house and he's knocking on the door, and we find out that he's been doing that for like a number of years, because Carl wants to talk about Rick, and the only other person he can talk to about Rick is Negan, pretty much. Carl likes talking to other people who knew Rick, and there's not that many people left standing who knew Rick at this point in the future. But yeah, Negan, it's like he's a recluse, he's a hermit now, he's not talking to Carl, and yeah, it's kind of like, what's going on there, you know? Is Negan alive in the future, you know, or is he somewhere else? Or yeah, is he living reclusively? So yeah, that was interesting. But yeah, Negan's story, it ends, you know, it just kind of ends, and you're expecting him to pop back up during the Commonwealth story, but he never does, which I was so disappointed in, you guys. And yeah, speaking of the Commonwealth, I love the whole idea of the Commonwealth. It's like a part of me understood what Governor Milton was trying to do. You know, I understood what she was trying to do, but at the same time, she was going about it all wrong, you know? And yeah, she was essentially creating class systems again, you know? Like, if you were someone wealthy in your former life, you got to stay wealthy and live in a nice house. If you didn't have such a great job and you were poor, you were back down there, you know? And that idea during a zombie apocalypse is so stupid, you know? It's so stupid and ridiculous. Who you were in your previous life, it doesn't matter, you know? Those things just do not exist anymore. And yeah, that's kind of Rick's whole thing. You know, Rick's whole thing in this entire series is about, you know, everybody sharing the load, essentially. You know, nobody is better than anybody, and, you know, whatever you feel comfortable doing, you can go do that, you know? If you think you have potential being a blacksmith, go be a blacksmith, you know? Wherever you think your talents best lie, you have that option to go do that, you know? You shouldn't be forced to do something you don't want to do just because somebody in power tells you, you know? So, I really love the idea of the Commonwealth and how that clashed with Rick, and yeah, Governor Milton was just a really interesting character. It's like you love to hate her. It's like, is she good? Is she bad? I'm really confused with her. I definitely hated her son, though. But yeah, the idea of the Commonwealth was very interesting. I loved kind of where that went, the whole plot, where it ultimately ended. Yeah, all the clashes with Rick and his people. And yeah, more than anything, I think the Commonwealth was definitely a big commentary, you know, on modern life, you know, definitely a big commentary, and very, very fascinating, you guys. And, you guys, before I do wrap up this review, something else I do want to talk about very quickly. I also did read the Here's Negan book. I mentioned Negan a while back. I should have talked about this book when I was talking about Negan, I think. Robert Kirkman, he wrote a little spin-off comic called Here's Negan, focused solely on Negan's origin story. I did read that. I did like it for the most part, but I did find myself thinking, I don't think this was entirely necessary. I feel like I didn't really learn anything new about Negan, because I felt like everything that was explored with him in this little spin-off, this little prequel, I felt like everything that was explored, I kind of already knew, I already guessed, I already assumed. But yeah, the prequel follows Negan right as the zombie apocalypse happens. His wife has cancer. She dies. He doesn't have it in him to kill her, so he has some other random guy kill her, and it's Negan's story as he's navigating through whatever, you know, as the zombie apocalypse is happening. He keeps coming across groups of people, but everybody kind of keeps dying, and he distances himself. He distances himself from people as he realizes they just keep dying, and he sees these people as just weak and beneath him. You know, like, these people are nowhere near as strong as I am. And we see Negan as he comes across Dwight and Sherry, and yeah, his origin, how he creates the saviors, and his whole just thought process, and yeah, how he gets Lucille, because yeah, his wife was named Lucille. He names his bat after his dead wife, and yeah, that's the full extent of the little prequel with Negan, you guys. And yeah, a lot of it was stuff I already assumed or guessed about him, you know. So yeah, I don't know if the Here's Negan prequel is entirely necessary for you to read. If you've read all of the other comics in the series and you want more of Negan, then pick it up by all means. But yeah, it's definitely not necessary, I don't think. So you guys, that is it for my review of the final compendium of The Walking Dead. Have you guys finished the compendium, the entire series? What did you think about it? Love it? Hate it? How did you feel about Rick's ending? Feel free to talk about spoilers with me down below, any thoughts and feelings that you have. Yeah, where do you think the show is gonna go, you guys? The TV series is just so dramatically different from these comics, and it's kind of reached a point. Is it gonna even end the same, or is it gonna have a dramatically different ending, especially with Carl dead? You know, the show killed Carl, and I think that was the biggest mistake the show could have done, because like I mentioned, the entire comic series is that core focused on Rick and Carl, and the show really destroyed that, I think. So I'm curious to see where the hell the show is going to go at this point, you guys, because I just feel like it's not going to have as an emotionally powerful ending as the comic series had, unfortunately. But yeah, you guys, that's it for this review. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye, guys.